I am so excited. Look what we have left. As promised, I went ahead and did this section and this section. So now we can just do all those fun gumballs in the middle. And we are done with the candy set from PaintGem. So welcome back, everybody. Really good to have you. I was thinking, I was like, oh, I don't really know what we're going to talk about. And then, well, I had a couple of ideas. So, you know, when I am head down, just diamond darting, I typically have on one of two things: a show that I have seen many times, actually not a show, a series, or YouTube, because YouTube, I definitely have those things that I watch, and then it just goes into auto mode, and I'm either absolutely not paying attention. I mean, again, I'm head down, so it goes with true crime. Hello, don't we all watch or listen to true crime stuff? Or tattooing stuff, because I love Ink Master. I don't even know how many times I've watched the whole series through. Or Drag Race. Or things like Swoop, Emily D. Baker, just a few things like that. And then there are also a few YouTubers that will do commentary on channels or subjects that I'm familiar with. So I don't know. I'm not really picky. I'm pretty chill about it all because, again, I'm just really doing this. Everything else is essentially background noise. So there is, I actually don't even know the name of the channel that showed up, but it was probably because I've done a whole lot of tattooing, which would be considered body modification. Oh shoot, that one did not work. Hang on. I gotta move this stuff up. But since it's body modification, I'm sure the algorithm was just like, hey, this falls in that category. But it is body modification trends in, I'm going to say China, but it might just be Asia. It feels like I hear him talk about China more specifically, but that could be because there are things that are going on in Japan that people in Asia want to replicate. Anyway, so here in the US, I've shared a few links from, I don't know if I'm going to say it right, I think it's Busiswa, when I talked about, you're like, girl, we were not talking back, about manicures, pedicures, just nail salons in general. So this one, you know, for that, it's nails, it's BBLs. I think she's talked about just those sorts of things that are more common here in the United States. I did not prepare myself for the things that are happening in China. So there's all sorts of eye surgeries. In the US, I knew about a few things. I've never, ever, 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 I think at some point I stopped diamond arting and could not take my eyes off of what was going on the TV. So the amount of surgeries that people have done to achieve the perfect look, perfect proportions, what is considered the perfect face, perfect proportions. And you know, we do that here too. That's one of the reasons that things, well, not face, but facelifts and things like that. And see, now all of a sudden I can't even think of them. I've seen people who do shaving their teeth, do the vampire fangs, they do put a gap in or close gaps, they get veneers, they do all sorts of things with their smiles. I have seen the piercings, which again, actually, I love the, I would not do it. I love some of the nose piercings that, especially the Indian brides use, and they pull the chain through. I think some of those are really stunning. I've seen the elf ears. Some of those are interesting. Anyway, there are all sorts of things. There are face tattoos. There are, let me see if I can get this. There are some really terrifying, I think they call it like tattooing your eyeballs. I just don't even know why. I'm sure people could say that about all sorts of things again. And that's terrifying because if you go wrong, like, you're blind. So anyway, this channel, and I will link it unless you are like, please no, I don't want to see any of this. I'll link it so you can watch if you want. But he did kind of a story time on an individual who got her first plastic surgery when she was 15. And she came from, I think she'd saved up her own money, or she came from a wealthy family. I watched so many stories yesterday. They're all kind of blending together. But I think she came from a wealthy family, so getting plastic surgery was not expensive. So she's 15 years old. She gets her first, I think it was a nose rhinoplasty. And then her family sees it, and they're really upset, and they send her to a youth, not camp, this is a show called Transformation in China. I guess it's very popular. And so she was sent to an area that had really poor families and individuals. And there was a girl that, again, really poor, struggled for food. And the main character, hang on, I gotta look for, I think I've got Q, yeah. She got enough money to get some food, so she got some noodles, and gave it to this girl. And the first thing that the girl did was take the food to her younger siblings and give it to her to make sure they had it first. Which, of course, now I'm just bawling because that was so beautiful to me. And so it made a real impression on her. And she returned home, told her family about it, and they thought that meant she was changed. But what her takeaway was, oh, you get plastic surgery and you get lots of visibility from people, which means more money. So she was like, oh, I'm going to take this money and I'm going to get more plastic surgery. So then I think she had a facelift. And she ended up meeting, she's 18 at this point. She meets somebody online, an influencer, and her whole thing was to be an influencer. So she meets a guy who is also an influencer, and they get married. And they're not married, I'd say they're not married very long, but I don't know, his nickname was like Mr. Pig or something. He was older than her. There obviously were problems throughout the marriage. She gets pregnant, they have a little girl, and her nickname is Little Pig. And she ends up, they get a divorce. There's all sorts of accusations throughout. Mr. Pig was unfaithful, and they just go back and forth. And so again, they get a divorce, and she puts 2 and 2 together, and she gets the other part, remember, money, was that the more plastic surgery she has, the more money she has, the more plastic surgery she has, the more people follow her, which just becomes this whole cycle. Plastic surgery, money, more fame. And so she gets a divorce, and she remarries another influencer. And of course, she had gotten 50% of Mr. Pig's assets. So meets a new guy, gets married. I think they're married for, I don't know, a month. And they get a divorce. She gets 50% of their assets, and then gets a whole bunch of plastic surgery. So then I think it's within the, oh wait, did she? I think she remarried Mr. Pig. That sounds so silly. But they divorced. I think it was actually, never mind. I'm not going to try to correct it. This makes me think of my mother-in-law, who would try to tell a joke and she could never remember it. And so she's like telling bits and pieces, and it of course makes no sense. And then she's laughing. She's like, well, I can't remember it, but it was really funny. That's apparently me trying to tell this story. So she has been married twice and divorced twice in the span of her 18th year. So then she remarries, and she gets married to somebody again, gets 50% of their assets in the divorce, and then by the time she's like 21, she's married again. She has another baby, and there's all this guy's another influencer, but he was younger than her, and she makes all sorts of accusations about him being unfaithful, but it was with a man, not a woman, and that was scandalous. And then she gets 50% of his assets. Now, as she's going through all this, she continually gets more and more work done. And her philosophy was, each time she got divorced, she was going to change her face completely into a new woman. So by the time she had divorced husband number 3, she had undergone 37 different surgeries on her face. Like, and probably 12 of them were on her eyes, 15 of them were on her nose. Like, there's jaw shaving, there's things I didn't even know were possible. And she's having them over and over and over. So that's the plastic surgery part. There was this other episode that talked about trying to achieve that super glassy, wet skin of in Korea. And it's this injector that uses light and needles. It's got like, I don't know, 10 needles or something. And it suggested that you take this fluid, sorry, I gotta scoot my chair in. You take this fluid that it comes with, and you fill it up, and you shoot these things into your face. And you're supposed to do it so many times, like that you have 200 holes on your face. And according to some of the experts, the more you're supposed to do it so much that your whole face swells up. And if you don't do it like that, then it's not effective. And there were people who were selling the services online, like, hey, come to this hotel and get an appointment with this specialist and they'll do it for you. Now, we all know how stuff like this goes. You can't, you can't assume that things are going to go well. And so what people were finding were things like these permanent circles, because you're supposed to do it regularly. And this one woman she was like, no, like these circles are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and they're not going away. And she was able to call the doctor, and they're like, no, you should just do more, and you need to wait. Like, you're just not being patient enough. And the longer she was waiting, the harder these little circles on her face were getting. And then they were itchy, they were swollen, like these things were terribly infected. And by the time, her whole face was, it just looked super, super painful. She got herself to the hospital, and they are called granulomas. And she said because they told her to wait as long as they did, the treatment time had passed, and these things were now permanent. And of course, she's trying to give them the name of the place and doctor she went to, and they packed up and left. I mean, they had rented out a block of hotel rooms and then disappeared. So that's just scary, scary stuff. All of these sorts of things. And I know that there are lots of people that travel to go get procedures done. In the US, it's pretty common for people to go to Mexico because you can get it done cheaper there. And some people will say you get what you pay for. I was watching, this would have been years ago, I was watching Love Island UK. It's really before they had it here. And there was a contestant, first of all, totally looked like Ben Affleck. It was the resemblance was uncanny. And he had these super white teeth. And people kept saying, oh, you went to Turkey to get your teeth done. So apparently that's a thing. I had not heard of that. But I'm sure every country has a place that goes to another country to get work done. So it was eye-opening. That sounds awful to say. But just to see how we are told we're not good enough the way we are. You can do head raising, like you inject the top of your head with hyaluronic acid, which is supposed to dissolve over time, but it raises like the back of your head, where if you're a woman, we would have bumpits to just kind of create that height. Other people would talk about the perfect ratio of like forehead to all the other measurements. And back to the back of your head raising. So there is a surgery, hang on, I have to find this, that people can do, but there's also a DIY version. And instead of using the hyaluronic acid, they would go to like a salon, like a hair salon or a spa, and allow them to make incisions, and they would put in bone cement. Like the brain doctors use, brain surgeons, when, say, you were in an accident or you were born without a fully formed skull, they can use this bone cement. And so people are just adding that. And it's not like hyaluronic acid that either dissolves over time, or if you have a reaction to it, you can have dissolved. And the pictures of people, like if you do it wrong, you don't have a lot of options. That is permanent. And if you're allergic to it or have some sort of, like, what are you gonna do? So There was the face stretching. There was, I just was, I couldn't believe it. And here's the thing. We know that these are trends. And now, because you were told that this is what makes you beautiful, but in 2 years it could be something totally different, what are you going to do? I don't know that there are many options. I'm going to move this up so I can see. It was really frightening. There were a few videos I didn't watch. I think I had kind of hit my limit, but they talked about the limb lengthening and shortening so that they were also the perfect ratio. I don't know. I thought many, many years ago about, and centuries ago, not like in the 80s, about wrapping your feet to keep them dainty and small, and just all the things that we do to ourselves in the name of beauty. I've seen there have been quite a few posts over the years about trends in women, like body weight proportion, how they're in fine art, they're the larger women and they were seen as the most beautiful. I'm going to assume, I have not done a lot of research into it, probably because they had access to food, and so they were deemed beautiful and probably a higher class. There are bust sizes that vary from large, small, in proportion. Hang on, I think that's a $. Maybe it's not. Hang on. We're gonna bring it, well, I have it on a lock. Well, maybe it's an 8. Yeah, we're gonna go with that. But what do you think about all this? I absolutely believe people can make their own choices about how they feel beautiful. But I also think it gets really dangerous. Are we no longer, is it no longer okay to age gracefully? The older I get, and I will be very honest and say that I have some changes I would like made to my body, but I've also undergone surgery before, and I hate the recovery from surgery. It is awful, no matter the surgery. I've had stuff done on my elbows. I've also just had this like teeny tiny, sorry, not flipping anybody off, but it was just this cyst, and I had to have that removed. That honestly was one of the most painful recoveries. First of all, because it's a hand and you use it all the time. So that was challenging. But I think about, okay, would I get Botox? Would I do injectables? But then again, I try to be very informed. I had to have a fusion done on my neck. And so I didn't know what that was going to look like, how they did it, where they went through. And so we found a YouTube video that showed exactly how it would go. That really did not help me. I was like, okay, that's disgusting. And it kind of made me hurt more in advance before I got it done. So I try, if there's something I'm even thinking for a cosmetic procedure, I go find a video to see what they do, and usually right then and there I say, nope, I don't want to get that done. I saw one, I think I was pretty young. I was interested in getting implants. When I say young, it couldn't be that young because the internet did not exist when I was young. But I watched, it could have been a medical, like a reconstruction. And as I watched that, I was like, oh no, thank you. No, no, no. There's no way I could make it through that. And so even now, when I go, oh, it would kind of be nice. I'm very flat-chested, and I've thought about it. Nope. Nope. I just keep that in mind, and I don't want to do it. So yeah, there is something I'm considering. As I am older, I'm really struggling with some hair loss. I don't know options for that yet, but in one of these videos, it showed people getting hair plugs. I don't know if that's still what we call it. And maybe it was seeding. I don't remember. But I was like, oh, I don't even know about that. I don't know if this stuff hurts. So, I don't know. I also think, is that a trend? Should I just allow myself to age gracefully? Like when you see, I'm just going to say Hollywood actresses because I feel like that's something universal. Individuals that we see. I think, and this person may have gotten work done. I don't know. But to me, she feels like she has aged beautifully. And that is Jamie Curtis. And I love her gray hair. I love, was it Everywhere, Everything All at Once? I think it was in that one. She was just essentially herself. That felt so good to me because I thought, nope, that is a real aging woman. And we don't see that anymore. There are so many examples of people who have gone too far. And I actually appreciated, kind of as a halfway intermission, halftime, from all of these many videos, there was a doctor, a plastic surgeon, who talked about the psychology behind it and how people just go from looking like they started off relatively natural to moving too far. I can't think of the name, but there was this woman who ended up looking like a cat because of the amount of, and her intent, I don't think, was to look like a cat. I don't remember. But she just had so much work done that she didn't look real anymore. And I know that there are people who do things like that intentionally. They want to be transformed into a cat or a vampire or something else. So they do full tattoo blackouts all on their skin and face. I guess their face is skin. And they get the teeth modified and ears and hair and do all that. And so he was talking about how people start with something simple, like getting an injectable, and then they like the way they look, but it naturally over time maybe subsides, like a lip injection. And so they kind of have this blindness as to what they look like before, or what being young looks like, or what, anyway, it's fascinating. So he said, instead of just getting one procedure, then they're like, okay, well, I want to get these lip fillers and cheek fillers, and now I want to get this thing done or that thing done. I can't think of what it's all called. And before you know it, you don't even know who that person is. The newest thing, I think, is it buccal fat removals, which if you do that when you're young, like, there's no replacing it. And that's just a natural part of aging. So whenever I kind of go down these little journeys, I tell myself that I want to age gracefully. I already actually look incredibly young for my age, and it's okay. I'm gonna be 60 years old next year, and it's okay to look that. So I just tell myself it's all good. All right. Well, this one took longer than I thought, but we did it. We wrapped it all up. We are finished. I'm so excited. I can put this in my journal as another finish, which I also love because I didn't know if I was going to have another finish for Friday. So thank you for joining me today. We're going to start something new next time, and we'll just kind of decide if we're going to keep going with these or if we're just going to do different things every week to keep it interesting. I'd love to hear your thoughts on body modification and things that you may consider or things that you've seen. And anyway, just your thoughts. So until next time, I hope you have a wonderful week. I hope you know that you are appreciated and you are doing your best, even on the days when you don't feel like it. We all know life is hard, and we're trying to do the best we can. Thanks for joining. See you next time. Bye.